Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to Bloom's Coffee Breaks. My name is Olivia, and today I'll be discussing one of the key fundamentals of e-commerce, learning how to drive, nurture, and convert audiences. My background primarily focuses on e-commerce with clients ranging in various stages of growth and size. And the one thing I always tell them is to make sure that they're in tuned and aligned with their customers and their audiences. When we talk about growth and longevity for e-com, it goes without saying that investing in audiences is the key to your success. There's a lot of literature out there, tips and tricks, if you will, on how best to acquire users to your site. But here's a quick breakdown of what I believe to be the fundamentals of audience growth. Master this, and you'll be well on your way to achieving e-commerce success. So let's begin. The first thing we need to mention in the webinar is, of course, defining your audiences. It seems like a really simple and almost obvious task, but when you start breaking it down piece by piece, you quickly see how complex and varied it can get. I want to go through some of the ways of organizing yourself and your business to make sure you're targeting the right people at the right time. So the first question we need to ask ourselves is, who makes up an audience? What I suggest doing at this stage is grabbing a sheet of paper and a pencil and writing down who you think your ideal audience is. Reflect on your product or service and why you made it. Who did you make it for? And what functions and benefits your product or services are bringing to your customers? As simple as it sounds, it's a good reminder for us that not everyone is meant to be targeted. And more importantly, the ways we target need to constantly adapt to changing digital landscapes. For example, what used to be content-driven marketing, keyword search queries, has now gone one step back in attempts to match audiences to the right target market. Target market is defined as a specific group of people or customers you want to reach with your specific marketing message. You could have multiple target markets and audiences depending on what your intent is with these audiences. But instead of using the content that we traditionally used, AIs built within platforms identify, collect, and group users into specific groupings that are pre-categorized based on their intent and likelihood of interest in your product. So in reality, we're going one step back and anticipating needs before the user knows they need it. The audience slide I put together here is a quick summary of the 6 touch points that make up your audience. Age. Seems simple and straightforward enough. You've designed a product that fulfills certain needs and functions at an appropriate price range. For example, if you're a woman's luxury brand that puts value on timeless cuts, practical pieces, and superior quality, it can be assumed that women in the age brackets of 16 to 25 may not be the ideal customer for you, since they may not actually be able to afford the pieces. Sex. Another somewhat obvious point to consider, but oftentimes overlooked. Who's actually buying your products? If you're a denim company specializing in men's fashion, can you say with 100% certainty that only men are buying the products for themselves? What's the likelihood of women purchasing for men in this situation? My recommendation is to nail down what's really happening here by investigating your CRM list and cross-reference with data coming in from your website. You might be surprised. Location. Again, you'd think it's obvious, but sometimes we can get ahead of ourselves. Just remember that we're targeting people based off the volume you can support. If you're a local business, first try making sure that you tap out your entire local audience network before trying to expand. You don't want to get too ahead of yourself. Interests. Another favorite of mine. So you think you've got the age, sex, location down of your target audience, but do you think they're all interested in the same thing? Likelihood is that they're not. Take, for example, 3 women living in Montreal, all within 20 to 30 age bracket. Chances are their interests, lifestyles, hobby, they all differ from one another. Make sure that you're targeting the right age, the right gender, the right location, and the right interests with your marketing. Now to the fun stuff. In market. Now that we found our ideal prospective audience based off age, sex, location, and general interests, the next thing to determine is what stage these people are in their conversion funnel or shopping journey. Are they just beginning their shopping journey by leisurely looking through your products, or are they researching your competitors, evaluating pros or cons of your products versus whatever else is out there? Have they already expressed interest on your website by viewing product pages or adding to cart? These are critical and important flags to note, and they need to be addressed appropriately and timely. Affinity groups. Based on the holistic picture of someone's lifestyle, you can find and prospect to people who you think would best benefit from your product and services prior to them showing intent. This data is collected by understanding users' behaviors in multiple touchpoints across the web, deciphering their likes, passions, interests, etc. This is the most important component for acquisition or prospecting. This is where I would say is the beginning touch point after you've already assumed or validated the age, sex, and location of your group. Try to match that information with the affinity groups available through Google Analytics or any other intelligence platform you're using for your business. Now that you have your paper definition of your audience, as well as the 6 touch points from the previous slide in mind, it's time to see what the data has to say about all of this. Based on pixels placed on your website alongside information collected directly from your paid media platforms and CRM, try to align yourself with the information that's presented in front of you. Pixel data is an excellent tool to track performance, habits, and on-site behavior. It's a good indicator as well of where you're thriving and in areas in which you need to work on. It's also a way to see whether you're missing out on potential audiences by not speaking to them or adjusting your messaging correctly and in a timely manner. At this point, what I'd also suggest is looking through your Google Analytics and establishing at what point users are coming in and bouncing off your website. It could be a key indicator that, for example, you did a heavy promotional push to acquire new users, and then 2 weeks later, you're seeing an incredible bounce rate from people who were already collected as potential new audiences. If you don't continue that cycle of promotion, it's normal to see that these types of audience groups who were first interested in your product because of the rebate then leave when they no longer have the option to get your products at a reduced rate. This is just something to keep in mind later on. Now for the last curveball. With all this information you've acquired and sifted through, how does it compare with your competition? What are they doing? Where are they doing it? Or how are they doing it? Or how aren't they doing it? If you move forward in expanding onto other platforms to recruit new users, take a look and see if your competition is doing the same. Doing some recon on the competition will also give you a chance to see where you stand in terms of your messaging and also shows where to leverage opportunities that better suit you and your audiences. If you see, for example, that your competition is running video campaigns that are very dynamic in nature, see what ways you can leverage that for your own use. If you see people are not crossing onto new platforms, are not engaging with new tools or new medias available, this is where I would say is an opportunity to grow and definitely show your worth to your clients. So nurturing your audiences. Let's talk about the funnel. I mentioned it briefly in a few slides ago, and I kind of want to get a bit more detailed on what the marketing funnel really does for you. So for the top funnel, this refers to all potential new audiences for your business. These users are typically net new. They've never purchased from you, never signed up, never have even been on your website. This is by far the most expensive portion of audience acquisition, and as you typically see, no direct return on your investment from your initiative. This is the first time a user will come in contact with your business, so the messaging, content, and delivery needs to be on point. Remember, serve your messages to audiences at the right time using the right language and the right medium. One of the things to take into consideration or ask yourself is, how do you establish key performance indicators or KPIs when talking about the top funnel? As I mentioned, it's not a direct return on investment. So what I would recommend at this point is looking at your impression share, how many clicks, your click-through rate, the time spent on site. These are all measurements that you can navigate as to whether your acquisition efforts or prospecting efforts are fruitful. If you notice that people aren't really interested, you're not getting enough reach, try sifting through your audience requirements. It might benefit you in the long run. So you've done all of this hard work in attracting new users to your website or your email list, but how do you continue guiding them down the conversion funnel? So this is where the mid-funnel tactics come in. Offers and incentives for a new customer purchase is a good way to bring the users in and is an excellent place to start. If you have first-time purchase incentives like free shipping, make sure to call these benefits out for the users so that they are more inclined to search for something on your website and benefit from it. But mid-funnel is also where existing and inactive customers populate the majority of your audience. Now that they've used their first-time buying incentive, how do you regain their attention? At this point, creating a sense of brand loyalty and reactivating past visitors will become key. So again, going back to that key messaging, if you notice that somebody has been inactive on your website or hasn't made a purchase in the last 12 to 15 weeks, perhaps re-showing new collection ads or products that you've updated on your website could be a good way to remind them to come back and shop again. So we're almost there. At last, the moment we've all been waiting for. It's the moment right before your user converts. These are the highest intent audiences you have. They've shown interest in your product pages. They've added to cart. They might even have abandoned a checkout. They were so close. So the question is, how do we get these audiences back? Dynamic remarketing and appropriate messages and triggers will be the key to your success. You need to make sure that you're talking to them within the appropriate time frame, show them the products that they've left, and re-engage their interests in the first place. One thing to remember with this audience is that once they convert, they need time to cool off. So don't rely solely on your bottom funnel to carry your growth. What's really important here is timing. I would recommend that you don't delay more than 72 hours before somebody has abandoned their cart or their checkout process. They're very close to converting. They could have been distracted for a moment and completely forgot. This is the key time to re-engage with that potential customer and have them finalize their purchase. That being said, they do need the time to cool off. Don't message them constantly or bombard them with other messaging right after they've made a purchase. Perhaps your product is not one that is, there's no quick turnaround if you have a larger price points. So give them a few weeks, perhaps even up to a month, and re-engage them through the mid-funnel by asking their opinions on the products or if they're enjoying it. These are all other things to consider. And then when you want to talk to them, we also need to think about frequency. In what rate are we showing ads to people in the bottom funnel to get them to convert? My golden rule on certain platforms is to evaluate the number of frequency and your return on ad spend. If you see that the number of times you're showing an ad far exceeds the return on ad spend, it's a good indicator for me to reduce spends. And it's also a reminder that these audiences are no longer interested and need to be replenished from the top and mid-funnel initiatives. Nurturing your audiences. Ways to implement audience nurturing. The first one, in my opinion, is through your email. Your email and CRM list is the base in which you grow your business. These are dedicated users who are interested and are more likely to keep up to date with what you have to say. Remember, most emails are read via smartphone, so make sure your site is mobile first to avoid bounce rates and poor user experience. In this time, also evaluate what makes a high-value customer. For example, do you want people who shop more frequently on your website at lower basket price points? Or are you looking for somebody who may not be as active as frequently on the website, but is more likely to make larger purchases? This information is going to come handy when we talk about our paid media. So for paid media, it's an excellent way to drive new user acquisition into the funnel. Using your CRM data as a base alongside pixel data taken from your website, take the lists and actively prospect audiences who show the highest value to your business, and then you watch it grow. Last but not least, organic. The hardest but most qualitative channel in acquiring users through. Your organic channels are a way to show off your brand's personality and to connect and resonate your messaging to your users. Remember to keep these channels as authentic as possible. These are really quality users. They're really interested in what you're saying, what you're putting out to the world, and using lookalikes in your paid media campaigns based off of these organic channels is an excellent way to acquire and nurture new audience growth for your long term. So last but not least, let's talk about your online presence. You can always message me or find me on LinkedIn. It's been a pleasure.